Picture this. You're standing right on the surface of Mars. You look around and there is absolutely nothing. Just an endless, freezing desert of red dust. You're a staggering 225 million kilometers away from Earth. There isn't another human being for millions of miles in literally any direction. Honestly, the sheer scale of that kind of isolation is almost impossible for our brains to even process. You are completely, utterly stranded on an alien world.
And then, the grim reality of where you are really starts to sink in. There's zero breathable air, no trees for shade, not a single drop of flowing water to drink. Imagine a massive disaster strikes, your crew actually thinks you're dead, and they just evacuate the planet without you. Now you've got a super limited food supply, a ticking clock on your oxygen, and every single day that goes by just brings you one step closer to the end.
Which brings us to the core question we're tackling in today's explainer. Could a human actually survive on Mars armed with nothing but science, engineering, and just pure, stubborn determination? I mean, it sounds exactly like the plot of a massive Hollywood blockbuster, right? But here's the crazy part. Scientists at NASA are actively trying to solve these exact same survival challenges right now. So today, we're going to break down one of the best sci-fi stories ever told and see how it really stacks up against actual NASA science.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Science of the Martian.
So that terrifying scenario we just talked about? That's the entire setup for Andy Weir's incredible novel, The Martian. Weir is this brilliant software engineer who's just obsessed with space. And he built this whole story around hard, factual science. He forces his main character, Mark Watney, who's an astronaut, a mechanical engineer, and a botanist, to fight the actual environment of Mars. He completely refused to use any magic alien tech or made-up futuristic gadgets. And honestly, that intense realism is exactly why this thing blew up into a massive cultural phenomenon. It started as a novel in 2011, and then Ridley Scott turned it into that huge 2015 movie with Matt Damon. We're talking over $630 million at the box office and 7 Oscar nominations. But really, the best part is that it got millions of people to genuinely care about actual space exploration.
Real quick, before we get into the heavy science of Watney's survival, if you're enjoying this trip to the Red Planet, please just take a second to like, comment, share this explainer, and hit subscribe. It seriously helps us keep bringing these deep dive science explainers straight to your feed.
All right, moving on to Section 2, Surviving the Martian Elements.
So how in the world do you survive an environment that literally wants you dead? Let's compare Watney's fictional tactics with what NASA is actually doing today. First up, food. Watney famously grows his own potatoes, but could we actually farm on Mars? Basically, yes. Plants need sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and nutrients. Mars has plenty of CO2, and we know there's ice underground. The big catch, though, is the dirt itself. Martian soil is absolutely loaded with these toxic chemicals called perchlorates. So before you even think about planting a potato, you'd have to completely wash and filter those perchlorates out. And you know what's cool? NASA's already laying the groundwork for this by successfully growing fresh veggies right up on the International Space Station. Step by step, the sci-fi is becoming science fact.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next major hurdle: water. Obviously, water is life. In the story, Watney cooks up water using some pretty wild, complex chemistry. It's totally scientifically accurate, but it's incredibly dangerous. Hydrogen is massively explosive. NASA, thankfully, is taking a much safer path in real life. They're pouring resources into developing tech that can just mine water ice straight out of the Martian ground. Because future astronauts won't just need to drink it, they'll need it for those crops, for making oxygen, and even for synthesizing the rocket fuel they'll need to actually get back home. Now, speaking of oxygen, this is where reality has straight up caught up to the movies. In the book, Watney relies on a fictional life support machine to breathe. But out here in the real world, NASA pulled off something absolutely mind-blowing back in 2021. The Perseverance rover had this little instrument on board called MOXIE. And MOXIE actually managed to produce breathable oxygen directly from the carbon dioxide in the Martian air. I mean, that is a total game changer. It proved that astronauts aren't going to have to drag thousands of pounds of oxygen all the way from Earth. We can literally manufacture it right there on Mars. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is where the science and the story actually falls apart. The whole inciting incident of The Martian is this catastrophic windstorm that threatens to knock over a multi-ton rocket, which is why they leave Watney behind. It's incredibly dramatic. But the reality? Mars definitely has massive planet-wide dust storms, for sure. But its atmosphere is incredibly thin. We're talking like 1% the density of Earth's atmosphere.
So a 100-mile-per-hour wind on Mars, it would basically feel like a gentle breeze against your face. It just doesn't have the kinetic energy to tip over a heavy spacecraft. Andy Weir actually admitted he totally knew this, but he just needed to make a scientific compromise to get the plot rolling.
Okay, Section 3. Real milestones on Mars.
Mark Watney is a great character, but NASA's actual robotic explorers have been putting in the real work up there for nearly 50 years. Nobody has stepped foot on Mars yet, but our track record is wild. Way back in 1976, Viking 1 became the first craft to successfully land and beam pictures back. Then in 1997, the little Sojourner rover was the first to actually drive on that red dirt. We've had Spirit, Opportunity, and Curiosity, which actually figured out that ancient Mars could have supported microbial life. And then 2021 was just a huge year. Perseverance landed, and NASA did the impossible. The Ingenuity helicopter actually achieved powered flight on another planet. We're literally flying drones on Mars now, which is going to be incredibly important for scouting routes for future astronauts.
So, the crucial point is this. The big, scary obstacles we're facing in the real push to colonize Mars, they're exactly the same as the ones in the novel. NASA and private companies like SpaceX are pouring billions into this right now. But it all comes down to the same core problems: securing a food source, getting water, making oxygen, not getting fried by cosmic radiation, and generating power that won't fail. The exact things Mark Watney had to hack together in the book are the exact puzzles the smartest engineers on Earth are trying to solve as we speak. And honestly, that perfect alignment between the fiction and the actual science is why The Martian is so highly respected. If you're even a little bit into space or engineering, you absolutely have to check it out. I'd give the science in this story a super solid 9.5 out of 10. And it earns that because it's just this amazing reminder that human beings' best survival tool isn't muscle. It's our brains, it's our curiosity, and our incredible ability to just sit down and solve a problem, one equation at a time.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, Humanity's Next Giant Leap.
So everything we've looked at today, from the sci-fi struggles to the real-life rovers, it's all building toward that moment when a human finally steps onto Mars. Which leaves me with a really provocative question for you all. Imagine NASA calls you up tomorrow. The tech is ready, and they want you to be on the very first crewed mission to Mars. The catch? It might be a one-way ticket. Would you actually do it? Would you risk it all just to be the first to walk on a new world? Or is the isolation just way too much? I genuinely want to hear your thoughts on this, so jump down to the comments right now and let me know what you'd choose.
If you had a good time with this explainer, please do me a massive favor. Hit that like button, drop your Mars answer in the comments, share this with anyone who loves space, and absolutely make sure you're subscribed for more deep dives into the cosmos. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Until next time, keep looking up, stay curious, and keep learning. Because science doesn't just explain the universe to us, it gives us the courage to go out there and explore it.